There was a guy by the name of Simon, right? Little Simon. You know Simon, who goes out there. He used to love Trump. He might still love Trump, but he's always around. He talks like that. It's Simon. This is a different Simon, though. Simon, though, the other Simon said, Hillary Clinton, how can we miss you if you don't go away? I don't know why she won't go away. This makes me believe that the fact that they are going to remove Joe Biden and she's thinking she can slip right in there, ladies and gentlemen, and go ahead and run for office. That's what she's going to try to do. Her and Gavin Newsom. Maybe she's going to run and Gavin will be her vice president. Who knows it? Just in, this is a false story. Hillary Clinton asked, why is Donald Trump so enamored with Putin? She's still doing the Russian thing over and over and over again. Russia this, Russia that, Russia, Russia, Russia. She's crazy. The only thing Trump is saying is that Europe must invest in NATO to be strong. And it's not just the bill to the U.S. Watch. Now, there are certain things I want to point out over here. I didn't just put this up Hillary Clinton a liar. I brought this section up to also say, well, why don't they run with it? NATO is obsolete. Why do we have to be involved in NATO? It's a false narrative that the European countries are forming together an alliance to stop the evil Russian bear from coming in and invading them. Russia doesn't want to do that. Putin did that. People don't understand. It's too much to manage. That's why they killed the USSR, folded, because there's too many countries to manage. They don't have enough resources, time to go around and tell these countries what to do. So it's just false. So the fact that she's saying this, I wish it were true, but it is a lie. And I don't know when people say, well, this is going to be bad for Donald Trump to go ahead and run and say, I want to get rid of NATO. For him to say, they just need to pay their fair share, then really you're just about dollars and cents. You're really not against war. You're not a peace president, right? Let's play this clip over here and listen to what Hillary Rodham Clinton has to say.
And why is Donald Trump so enamored of Putin? Well, part of it is he's a wannabe dictator. He has told us that repeatedly. He even said the other day, let's basically get out of NATO and, encourage Putin to do what he wants to do. How absurd a statement that is cannot even be, measured, because you are essentially giving a green light to a murderous, brutal dictator. And why is Donald Trump
It's a lie. He never said that. It's false. But see, this is the thing I can't understand. Okay, what's so wrong about it? Why? Listen, I think the majority of Americans, and the fact is they're spewing this narrative that they really think is true. They think that, oh my God, if we got out of NATO, what are we going to do? This is so awful. How can we do such a thing? Why would we get out of NATO? No, most people are tired of it, not just from the financial point of view, which really sucks that Donald Trump, it's about money. It's about, we got to make them pay their fair share. We can't keep doing this. No, we don't need it anymore. It's obsolete. It's not just about the finances. We don't need to spread war. We don't need to be saber rattling with another nuclear power. It really is a good idea to get rid of NATO. I really wish that Donald Trump would run with it, but he won't. Hillary Clinton, Trump means what he says about withdrawing from NATO. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is predicting that former President Trump will make good on his repeated threats to withdraw from NATO if he wins re-election to a second White House term in November. Obvious point to make about Donald Trump is take him literally and seriously. He means what he says. My mama used to say he means what he says. He says what he means. If they tell you who they are, believe them. Remember that whole thing? She's still going with that. People did not take him literally in serious 2016, said Hillary Clinton, who lost to Donald Trump that year as the Democratic presidential nominee. And she wants to run again to the same guy? Oh, my God. While speaking Saturday at a panel at the Munich Security Conference in Germany, Clinton's remarks were part of a nearly 7-minute response to being asked if Europe can still rely on America. Yeah, they can still funnel tons of money over there with their money laundering scheme, selling and building weapons as long as they create the threat that is Russia or China. It's ridiculous. It's awful. This guy over here, who we were talking about running for president, possibly for the Libertarians, he did not. I wish he would. At first, I was like, you know what I'm saying? I wanted Spike Cohen to run. I don't know why he doesn't run, because the choices they have now, I'd rather have Spike than any of them, and I'm at odds with Spike when it comes to certain things. Not most things, but a few things. And Spike is pretty much good. And they all kind of shit the bed when it came to Malay, right, in Argentina. The way they praised this guy, they elevated him, they lifted up, they worshipped him. Oh my God, we got a libertarian. And when some of us who are the anti-imperialist leftists who actually know what's going on in Latin America, who know what's going on in the global south here, south of the border, we understand who he was, that he was just a weft cuck that was going to sell out to Goldman Sachs and the banks. And he did, pulling out of bricks and whatnot. They're in the streets protesting, and he's quelling the protest, and they're suppressing speech. Yeah, he's a true libertarian. Okay, so they took the bait. But Dave Smith has a lot of good things to say, too, as well. And a lot of people thought that Dave Smith, from when the Twitter chatter was out there, some people even accused and said, well, I think he'll be pro-Israel. Not at all. He stood his ground. In fact, when he heard that RFK might have been running for president, he says, I'm going to make sure under his ticket, under the libertarian ticket, he said, you know what? I'm going to make sure that he doesn't get that libertarian ticket if he tries to run, because him supporting Israel and the Zionists is a cancellation across the board. Now, you might agree with that. You might not agree with that, but he's sticking to his libertarian principles as an anti-interventionist, and he thinks it's wrong. He got very educated by Scott Horton over the years. He talks about it, and this is him giving his piece on the truth about NATO expansion, talking about how awful it is. So when you talk about people out there who are saying, oh my God, Donald Trump's not going to do that, that would be a disaster. No, it wouldn't be. If he were to really pull out of NATO, if he were to become a president, it'd be a good thing. How do we know? Just listen to David Smith. All you have to do is listen to your history.
There's a lot of really wise people within the government who were completely against NATO expansion in the 90s when it first started. At least 3 secretaries of defense, Robert McNamara, Robert Gates, George W. Bush and Barack Obama's Secretary of Defense, William Perry, who was Bill Clinton's Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Defense at the time, they all opposed it in the strongest possible language, and all explicitly for the reason that this will provoke a conflict with Russia. George Kennan, who was the founder of the containment strategy, the old school Cold Warrior. There's this great interview he gave with Thomas Friedman from the New York Times. You can find it online. And it's in the 90s when they're doing the first round of NATO expansion. And he is furious. His anger comes through the page when you're reading it. Because he's like, what are you guys doing? We won the Cold War. We won. And now you're picking a fight with Russia. And this isn't Vladimir Putin's Russia. This was Boris Yeltsin, And he's like, these aren't the Soviets. These aren't the communists. These are the heroes who overthrew them. Why are we picking a fight with them? And he was a Cold Warrior. He was like, you're throwing away my life's work. And he said, the people who are advocating expanding NATO are going to continue advocating expanding it and expanding it and expanding it. And then there will be a Russian reaction. And then when there's the Russian reaction, they're going to say, see, that's proof that we have to keep expanding it.
Great friggin' work. Great lines by Dave Smith. I hope to get him on the show soon. I'm in contact with him here and there when I get a hold of him. He's a busy man, but that is some great stuff over there. It just points out the obvious. Thank you, Captain Obvious, but it is true. That's what they're doing. They keep on poking the bear, and when the bear responds back, they want to go, see, we told you they're aggressive. Look at Putin. They're doing it right now with the whole Ukraine situation. All you have to do is look back to 2014. I mean, you can go back further to see the United States always using Ukraine as a proxy to go ahead and poke the bear, because the Ukraine historically was always split. The East being closer to the Russian Federation and Russian ethnics being pressed closer to the EU and wanting to join NATO and those other countries and stuff like that, and having actual Nazis, people that fought on the side of the Nazis during World War II. So the United States has always used Ukraine as a proxy to go out there and poke the bear because they want to start a war. And that's how they can do it. And if you look at 2014, you will see they took over the government. They had a revolution that was funded by people like George Soros, who funded the independent media. I know it's like, oh, they're bringing up Soros again. They're the leftists again, just bringing up Soros here and there. The conservatives, they say, right? But it's true. And that's the heart of where George Soros has some pull over there. He's from Ukraine. He is Ukrainian. So yeah, the other people funding the independent media over there, starting a revolution on the Maidan. You have people like Lindsey Graham and John McCain showing up, and Senator Murphy, and all these people on there egging on people like the Azov Battalion, telling them they're going to arm them to go fight the Russians. And look what Lindsey Graham says, killing Russians. Best money we ever said. Remove the government, and Yanukovych, who had to flee the government, and then all of a sudden, while Yanukovych is leaving the government, saying, Vladimir Putin, you're going to have to get involved, because these Azov Battalion guys, they're the crazy ones. They're the ones who are going to fire and kill their own citizens. So they armed them to the team. What did Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation do? Try to negotiate, try to look for peace, bring up the Minsk agreement, Minsk 1, Minsk 2. Let's get a ceasefire. We'll recognize that. We'll do this. We'll do that, as long as we don't continue to go to war, right? Because it was a war that's going on. And Vladimir Putin is 100% telling the truth when he says he entered the situation not to start a war, but to end it. And the United States knows for such a long time, they're the reasons that caused this. And now what happens? 500,000 Ukrainians are dead. The average for the front soldier on the front line for the Ukrainians is now 43 years old. They wiped out a generation. BlackRock and Vanguard has bought up all their commodities in their wheats. And what's going to happen next? It's going to be a 15-minute city in Kiev, right? Let's rebuild over from the ground on up. It's a two-way operation. It's a two-way scam. Pyramids going both ways, baby. We'll spend a shit ton of money and then line the pockets of the military-industrial complex, bombing the shit out of the place, and then we'll spend a ton of money for the corporations to go and rebuild it back. And it's coming out of your tax dollars with their blood. Disgusting. Thank you, David Smith, for speaking truth. I'm on your side. I love what you got to say, brother. Not always, but most of the solid.